We'll probably just start with like you telling us a little bit about how you got there and then kind of see where that takes us.
I guess so I kind of put this in my overview, which was not that short. So I graduated high school in 2018. I knew that I wanted to come to Auckland to study engineering. So I did all my papers. If you never call them papers in high school, I did all the NCA courses that were required, and I did not pass one of my calculus and one of my physics papers, I think. And and it stopped me from enrolling into engineering, which was quite daunting at the time. And I never knew that there was such a thing as like alternative pathways. So yeah, I was on call with Ask Auckland almost every day. And they told me that, hey, there is this thing called the alternative pathway where you can enroll into a science degree, do a major in maths and physics for a semester, and they also gave me like a set of courses that I could pick from to do in that first semester. And based on my grades from that paper and my overall GPA, they would see if I could be eligible to enroll into engineering semester 2 onwards. So yeah, that happened, and I was cross-cutted for 3 of my papers, and then did a bit of summer school, caught up on them. And now I'm in chemical materials and I'm in my 3rd year, which is quite crazy.
That's cool. So it's really interesting that you kind of knew from high school that you wanted to do engineering. How did you hear about it in the first place?
So my dad, we moved to New Zealand back in 2012. So 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now. And he was studying chemical and materials engineering, chemical and process, I think. No, just chemical, that's what they call it there, at Waikato. And he did that for a year and a half, and then he found a job. And I've always seen him work in the oil and gas industry, and now he works at Methanex, and I've always found that quite interesting and something I saw myself being interested in. So like ever since I was 13, so when I was in year 8, I would go around telling everyone, oh, I want to be a chemical and materials engineer, even when I didn't know what a chemical and materials engineer would do. So I guess that kind of stemmed that want to do this. Yeah,
for sure. And it's so cool that you had a little bit of a setback, but you persisted and you took the alternative pathway and all of that. How did you find kind of integrating into the Faculty of Engineering starting in semester 2 of that year?
So I would say I didn't find it too hard, especially because I stayed at a hall of residence, where I came across a lot of engineering students, and especially on my floor. And I'd be like, oh, tell me more about your degree. And they'd be like, why are you so excited? And I'm like, no, this is so exciting to me, because that's something I want to do. So I had a lot of help from people who lived with me. I remember my RA, in my first semester, actually, he told me to get involved with WIN. He's like, even though you're not doing engineering in the moment, if that's something you want to do, it's a really good idea to like go to their events and with a friend, and just, I guess, build that connection already before going into semester 2. So yeah, I'd say it was quite simple to move into that, especially since I knew a lot of people already doing the course.
Yeah, totally. I mean, all credit to you for going to events and stuff, because it can be a little bit hard to push yourself when you're in a new place and everything. Which hall were you in?
I was at University Hall.
Yeah, would you recommend that to anyone new to university?
Definitely, just because you meet so many people who are just like you, and I found that in terms of like studying and things, that really helped. You could go to someone for help instead of like having to come to campus to attend the part 1 sessions, which are great, but sometimes it's easier, like I found it easier to ask a friend for help and come to some of the health clinics.
Yeah. It can feel a little bit easier when it feels like they're kind of on the same level as you, older, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Totally. Are there any other engineering clubs that you've got involved with since you've been with us in engineering?
I've been a member of the AUES, obviously. I love their events, they're so cool. And the Chemical and Materials Student Association. I see they've got a couple of events coming up and they look pretty cool too. I joined them last year, but obviously COVID kind of butchered.
Yeah. How did you find COVID impacted your studies last year? How did you find working from home?
It was a big transition because I started off here in Auckland and then I moved back home to New Plymouth for the first lockdown, and it was just really hard to like compartmentalize how long I'm going for, how much stuff I need to take, what stuff do I need to take for uni, and how to keep that separate from everything else. And making myself a good schedule while I was at home so I wasn't falling back on lectures and assignments. And there were moments that I did, and it was quite like I felt really like lost in that moment, but it was quite helpful to just like flick an email to my lecturer and be like, hey, this is what I'm going through. Is it okay for me to take some more time to do this? And they were really good with like 24-hour extensions, which were really helpful, and I'm really grateful for that.
I think your experience reflects a lot of people's last year. It's a whole different way of learning and studying and everything. Do you think, having had that experience, has that allowed you to show up kind of differently when it comes to study this year? I mean, granted, we're in a lockdown again, but has it changed how you kind of tackle assignments and tackle your workload?
Yeah, it's taught me to stick as close to my actual timetable as possible. I feel like that's the best way for me to get work done on time. Also, I guess this year it was a bit easier because there was no transition to make, because the lockdown was announced before uni started itself. It wasn't like I went to uni for a couple of days and then they were like, no, go back home. In terms of that, it was a bit easier where a day ahead you were prepared that, okay, it's going to be online. So I guess in that way I'd say it was different to the first two lockdowns, but also I feel more confident. I felt more confident going into this one in terms of my academics.
Nice. That's so good to hear. And I do feel like, as with everything, practice kind of makes perfect. Did you do an internship over the summer?
I did not do an internship over the summer.
What are you hoping to do this year?
I have no idea. I am going to be completely honest. I wasn't looking into internships the summer that passed because I was doing summer school.
Of course.
So I was like, I'll hold that one for a bit, and I am planning on extending my degree by a year, taking my time to do it. So I've still got 3 summers to go, I think. So I have not looked at internships yet. I should get onto that. But I'm excited though.
Have you thought about any companies that kind of draw your interest?
Fonterra. Fonterra sounds quite cool. I again do not know what internship opportunities they have. And my dad actually, he was telling me that Methanex takes in interns as well. So that would be quite cool as well. And then I'll be back home.
That's so cool. I wonder if you kind of reflect on where you were at when you hadn't got into engineering and you were going via the alternative pathway through science, what advice would you give yourself now at the start of that journey? So semester 1, you're coming in, you're going into science. What advice would you give yourself looking back now?
Don't stress out and continue trying your best. I know there were points where I was like very low, and I was like to a couple of my friends, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I'm just gonna study math and then become a maths teacher or something, which was cool. I like maths, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was a big letdown to myself that this was something I worked towards all throughout my high school career, and then I reached a point where I couldn't make it. So it was like 5 years in the making, and it just did not happen. So it was quite a big setback. But yeah, just to stay positive and try your best. And I guess because they talk about when you do the alternative pathways, you think about, oh, I have to reach the minimum grade requirement and my GPA needs to be this high and things like that. But it really was not that hard to do if you're on top of things and if you've got a good schedule. That's like me with everything. If you've got a good schedule, if you can organize yourself, you can do almost anything.
Yeah, it's such good advice, because it can be such a huge transition from how you study in high school to how you have to study in university.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I got quite lucky actually in my first semester. I had one class on Monday and then another on Tuesday. So those 2 days, apart from that 1 hour lectures, I was basically just studying in the mornings. And I found that the more I studied during that time, the less pressure I would have on during my full-on days during the week as well. And then I would still have my evenings off. Like I cannot remember more than 3 or 4 evenings that I actually stayed up studying because I had it all done in the morning. So again, it comes back to like time management and organization. Write everything down, like visualize it so you can see. Yeah,
That's so good. I mean, it's very impressive that you had that level of balance in your first semester, because I think most people would not be able to relate to that experience. So like, congrats. And that's probably part of the reason you made it into engineering as well. I'm just wondering, so outside of having seen your dad's career and kind of being interested in that, what drew you to engineering as a potential career?
So over the last couple of years, I have been really interested in skincare and cosmetics. I don't know, it's something I really enjoy. And I found I was watching this documentary of like a makeup brand, and they mentioned how they have a cosmetics formulating engineer person. And I was like, that sounds very similar. I think this was after I got into engineering as well. I was like, this sounds very similar to like what a chemical engineer would do, but like obviously in the field of cosmetics and skincare. And I was like, that sounds very much like me. So ever since I've seen that, I was like, to be able to work for something I'm so passionate about in my personal life would be quite cool. I do realize that industry is not that big in New Zealand, but yeah, it's something I want to work towards.
Yeah, I mean, your degree will be Washington Accord accredited, so you can basically go anywhere. You're not.
Yeah. And I think I was actually told by Steve Matthews that the degree and the courses that we're taught here equip us with the fundamentals to be able to work in almost any subfield that comes onto chemical and materials. So that was quite nice to hear from him say that okay, so what I'm thinking is actually achievable as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, have you ever thought of the potential of starting your own skincare line?
Well, that would be quite cool to do, but again, I'm like, I have no experience in the field, so I want to kind of dip my feet in the waters first. But yes, that would be quite cool.
Yeah, very amazing. Cool. So just thinking about when now, do you remember any of the events that have stood out to you as like particularly good that helped you with anything?
There are so many. I'm like, oh. My personal favorite that I love was the WIN dinner last year actually, and it was obviously a really fun time to like go with my friends and hang out with them, have a nice meal, but also talk to my lecturers outside of lectures. And it was really fun. I was talking to Arsheen from chemmat materials. He's the head of our department here, and I was like, he's such a cool dude. Like I've been listening to him in lectures. I was like, okay, that's like someone I aspire to be like. And then actually talking to him that night, I was like, he's so full of knowledge, and like, please pass on all of that to me. So I think just being able to network and connect with them during that time in that space was quite
that's so cool to hear, because it's like the lecturers are just people, and I think we're lucky in New Zealand because we kind of we have a less hierarchical society, so you can just like have a yarn to your lecturers. So lovely. Yeah, what's been your favorite course so far?
My favorite course, okay, unpopular opinion, but in Gen 115.
Oh, okay, how come?
I loved drawing the shapes and the blocks and like building them and then like looking at them and then drawing them. Yeah, I thought it was quite fun. Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, you know, everyone finds different courses, you know, appeal to them more or less. And yeah. Arsheen, is there anything else you would like to tell us about kind of how you feel about having made this decision to keep progressing towards engineering, even though you hit a hurdle on the way here?
I think this is definitely one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Like, you will still hear me saying from time to time, oh my God, why did I do this to myself? But I know at the end of the road, I will be so grateful to myself and that I made this decision and everyone who supported me along the way, because there have been multiple times, even last year, where I felt like, what if this is not for me? Like, I'd get cold feet, second thoughts, but yeah, I feel like I persevered through and I can keep it going. So yeah.
Cool. Well, we're super glad to have you here with us, and thanks so much for having a chat to us about this.
That's all good. This was quite fun.
Cool.